You're listening to the Teens for the Nation podcast. Let's get right into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the Teens for the Nation podcast with your host, Cade McLemore. We are closing off this series with one last very special guest temporarily with Miss
Kaylee Prouse.
We have Miss Kaylee on today. She will be concluding our series. I do plan to open the series back up later, but right now the Lord is really leading me to close it, so I just wanted to inform you all that before we get started. So let's go ahead and get this started a little funny with an icebreaker, Kaylee.
Oh, gosh.
If you could have dinner with any fictional TV character ever, who would it be?
Like, cartoon-wise, or?
Any fictional character, so that could be action movies, like real characters, because those are still fictional. Action, any movie, fictional character, not somebody that is not real.
Casper the Ghost in human form.
That's interesting. I never would have thought about that. Personally, I would probably have to say, now I cannot remember his name, and I know somebody's going to be mad at me for not knowing his name, but the guy from, no, I can't remember the movie. No. Fantastic Four. You ever seen that?
I've seen it. I just...
The lead guy, I think the guy that can turn into the fire. Yeah, I think that's who it is.
I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name.
But yeah, that's definitely who I would pick. Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump right into this. I like to throw this question in. It seems like nobody ever knows that I throw this in, but considering this is the third episode, I hope you would know by now. Anywho, when did you accept Jesus and where?
Okay, so I've actually grown up in the church, but I never fully understand or had the grasp of what God or Jesus was. And then after my grandpa's passing, I went to Hot Hearts that following year, and that's when I first generally felt God's presence and when I knew he was there. And then stuff happened, got lost with my faith for a bit, and then more stuff happened that led me to find my way back to my faith.
That's awesome. Well, I usually like to throw that in because I feel that everybody should be able to express when Jesus has changed their life. I really think that's awesome. But considering this is the calling, what is your calling?
Okay, so I'm like 99.99% sure it's to be like a youth pastor or something. Somewhere, like some type of pastor for kids.
That's really awesome. I'll be honest, and this is a personal thing. I was originally called to children's ministry. But then God slowly revealed to me that was for a season in my life. And I fulfilled it. I was kind of helping a lot when we had a pastor that was our children's pastor. And I helped a lot. That was what my calling was, and it was just for that season. God often calls us for seasons and we don't know what it is. Right now, my season is doing this podcast, actually. But, yeah, that's just a little bit about me. Right now, I do know what my main calling is, and that is to be a pastor. I don't know anything other than that, but that's pretty much it. Well, how do you know you were called or where?
Okay, so this might sound a little crazy, but bear with me. So, at camp this year, I knew I was called for something. I didn't know what. And we were, like, worshiping and praying, and I was just praying to God, like, point to me and show me, like, what I'm supposed to be. And I'm gonna just say this now. I thought I was going crazy, or I was just, I don't know what. But my hands would slowly, like, I'm not even forcing my hands or anything, but my hands would slowly, was like moving towards the youth pastor and like pointing towards him. And I know it sounds crazy, and I even thought I was going crazy, but after talking to some youth leaders, they've shown to me that Jesus can do things that seem impossible, and God can do things that seem impossible. So even if that does seem impossible to you, it is possible for him.
Wow. That's really awesome, actually. That's a first, but that's what this podcast is about. Is first people get to hear from you. Are you exercising your calling in any capacity right now, or you're still learning about it?
Well, there's not a whole lot I can do at the moment, or stuff that I know what I can do. But one thing I am doing is, I don't have like a whole bunch of friends in like real life or whatever, but I do have a lot of friends on TikTok and stuff. So on TikTok, I usually find like one stranger or two strangers, and I just text to them randomly saying that, like, or anybody I feel like I need to text, and I'll just tell them that I'm praying for them, and if they need me to pray about anything for them, I will, and that God loves them, and that there's always someone there for them, especially God, and that they're just never alone.
Wow, that's awesome. You know, I'm really happy that you found a way to minister to people even though you're still learning about your calling. That's really awesome. A question I like to ask, it's kind of personal, but are you willing to submit to God and use the God-given gifts to glorify Him?
Of course, definitely. And I know sometimes you can get caught up for doing it for yourself, but then you just got to remember that everything you do is for Him, because without Him, you wouldn't even be alive, so you just got to do everything for Him.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason that I had started this podcast is for people to know about Jesus. Rather, if it's about where you've been called, what your testimony is, or where God is taking you. Because God has taken people from devastating places to all kinds of different places. If there is somebody listening to this right now that is battling faith, what would you want to tell them?
Well, I don't want them to think that I'm just saying this just to say it. I want them to know that I've truly been through what they're going through. And for me, I found someone, or God put someone in my life that led me back to Christ, and that He might do that for you, which I actually have a whole sermon on that, but that's not the point. What the point is that you are never alone, and I know I already said this, but again, you aren't alone, and there's always someone there. Could be a friend, a family member, or anything, and I just recommend talking to them, because if I didn't talk to someone, I would be in a way worse place than I am now, and I have definitely grown a lot through talking to someone and talking to God.
Yeah, that's really awesome. You know, part of growing with God is realizing what we need to correct in our lives. Do you think that there is areas in your life that you need to correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's always way more ways to grow and to correct, but the most I can do for right now is to pray about it, talk to God about it, read about it, and try my hardest not to do whatever is not glorifying God.
Yeah. And do you think that right now that your relationship with God is pretty good where it's at, or do you think you still have some improvement?
I think it's good, but there's always room for improvement, no matter the case, no matter if you've been in the church all your life or just started. There is definitely way more room to go. Like, God gave His life for us, and we can never repay that. We cannot do anything that will go up to that level. So the most we can do is just continue to grow and to glorify him.
Yeah. I think we always, I ask this question because I want people to share, but no matter what you are, no matter if you're the lead pastor of a church, or if you have a doctorate's degree, you always have somewhere to grow. You can never stop growing. There's always room to grow in any capacity. Because just because you know how to play the guitar does not mean you know how to play the violin. Or does that not mean that you may not know how to preach or speak? Some people have speaking problems. And it's a blessing that we're able to sit here together and speak. But is there anything that you would like to just share to somebody struggling with any kind of thoughts? Because a lot of times there are people, and I know this is going to sound kind of tacky, but there are people that are struggling with who Jesus is. Not necessarily the idea of God or religion or relationship, but who is he? Like when I accepted Jesus, I was following the religion. I was following what I was taught my whole life because I grew up in church. I'm just like apparently everybody that's been on my podcast. But what would you want to say somebody that's struggling with getting to know him personally?
I will say, though, I have been there. When I was younger, I was going through phases a lot, and I even doubted that Jesus was real or not, or God was real, because how can someone just randomly be there and create all of this? And there's just things that we can't comprehend that Jesus does know and that we don't know. But I will say that, wait, what was the question again?
What would you say to somebody that is trying to learn deeper about God, know him personally?
Well, I would first go to someone who knows a good amount of stuff about Jesus so that you can expand your education about Jesus and stuff. That's how you know about him, but to get to know him personally, I recommend reading your Bible, getting into the Word, asking as many questions as you can think of, just really getting into it. And I know I already said this, but talk to him. He is the Father, your best friend, everything. And he wants to talk to you, no matter the situation. So whether you're happy, sad, going through anxieties, talk to him, because he would love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Well, based off of what you've talked about yourself and your life and what you've gone through, what you've overcome, what God is even calling you to, what do you want somebody to get from your story?
I just want them to understand that God can do the impossible thing. So even if you feel like you're called to one thing but you don't know for sure and something crazy happens, like for me, that there's a good chance that it is God, because God can do the impossible.
Yeah, he really can. And that's basically it, Sometimes we have to just blindly put our trust in God. And I know that sounds crazy to some people. They're like, why would I blindly put my faith into just some random guy? Because he loves you, because he created you, because he's the maker. And if you have any questions, reach out to somebody, and I mean that. As I conclude this series, part of my mission and my hope is that people understand that God calls you. And it could be anywhere. It could be to where you work or anything. And I just wanted to have a few people on here that feel like they're called to share what God's done for them when they've accepted the call to ministry. It's a great thing. I've accepted mine, and everybody is still learning about it. That's why I want to come back to this, is because every day people are accepting the call to ministry, and that is so wonderful. Well, I have one last question for you as we wrap this up this evening. Why did you want to be on this podcast?
I wanted to, one, because it'd be a great honor, because you're one of my closest friends, and two is because I wanted people to know that God has given them gifts and I want them to know that, or at least want them to try to glorify God with it. There's multiple ways to glorify God. You might be gifted with multiple things. You might be gifted with one thing. For me, I'm good at art, so I like to draw things that are related to God or Christ. And this is going to sound a little silly, but my mom posts them on her Facebook sometimes. And I love reading all the comments from all, like, the old people and all of her friends, or just strange people that doesn't even know who Jesus is. Or you can preach a sermon. I mean, I am terrible at talking to people. I have anxiety and stuff, but I pray to God about it, and I let him speak through me. So I just wanted them to know that there's multiple ways you can glorify God no matter what, whether that's music, art, photography, anything.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Well, Kaylee, I thank you so much for coming on here today. It was really an honor for you to have you on here as the last person of this series. It could be another year before I pick this up. And to say that you've been on this series is pretty cool, actually. Thank you guys for listening. It was an honor to have Kaylee on here. Join us next week for the beginning of our series on My Story, featuring a very special guest of mine. I hope y'all have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Goodbye.